Please help me welcome to the stage, Sophia Olivas.
Failure is a joy vacuum, and it should be avoided at all costs, or so we've been conditioned. If failure is so bad, how is it that some of our greatest childhood accomplishments have stemmed from massive defeats? Take walking as an example. I, for one, did not roll out of my crib one day and run a marathon. I am certain there was a great amount of stumbling on my part before I mastered the task. Ever wonder how many attempts it took you to learn how to walk? How about ride a bike or drive a car, especially if you learned how to drive stick? Failure is vital for success. It's how we learn. Prominent ship captains and pilots are masters of failure. These captains are off course 99% of the time due to inclement weather, turbulence, and currents. Their instruments beep and instruct them, correct 3 degrees easterly. The captains then follow the instructions and arrive safely at their destinations. Failure for them is viewed merely as a course correction. Think back to the first time you really recall failing. How old were you? Did the boy you like pick someone over you? Did you not make the cut for the team? When it happened, what did you say about yourself or about life? And how did it impact your decisions going forward? The first time I recall failing, I was in my mid-30s. Call me a late bloomer. In reality, it was the first time anything had occurred as failure. I got engaged to a man who I found out afterwards was a diagnosed sociopath. It pains me to mention this. I don't want to keep that conversation in existence, and I certainly don't want to make it public. I suspect I'm not the only one here tonight who has made some choices that they'd rather keep private. Up until this failed engagement, everything I set out to do, I did, and it always appeared to work out. Despite my positive point of view, I had some pretty epic failings prior to this event. As an example, in just 28 days, I single-handedly raised and lost $30 million for my own startup company. I had naively tied its success to something I had no control over. Course correction. Then there was that time that I launched online banking for a top 5 financial institution. Prior to starting the project, I had failed to secure my role upon its completion. The bank, overjoyed upon a successful launch, promptly handed it to a newly named president, and it was not me. Another course correction. At that time, as in my childhood, I viewed these events as learning experiences, stepping stones. I even said things like, hey, I'm in my 20s. I'm exploring all my options. Because I viewed these events in this manner, I hadn't experienced them as failures. When I discovered that the man I'd been with for years was not who I thought, it was as if gravity had disappeared. There was no floor for me to hit. I began asking disempowering questions like, if I'm such a smart cookie, how did I not see all those signs? And I compounded it with internal statements such as, I come from an abusive childhood. I'm broken, and this is proof. It wasn't until I attached all that meaning to the failure as a personal statement about myself that I actually began experiencing it as failure. During this time of introspection, I discovered a powerful formula that allowed failure to shift for me and how it occurred, allowing me to bounce. First, Remove the significance of failing. How? Insert a pattern interrupt. When you're experiencing the pain of failure, change your physical body structure, breathe, and state out loud, plot twist. I call my failures bonzos. It's a made-up word that rolls off my tongue, makes me giggle, and snaps me out of my significance. Picture this. I'm on a backpacking trip through Guatemala in a town called Antigua. I see this woman walking towards me on a cobblestone road. She's carrying a huge basket on her head, filled with freshly cleaned white laundry. As she's maneuvering the uneven road, she trips. The laundry spills all over the floor. I suck in my breath, and I hesitate, just long enough to witness a playful smile across her lips. She laughs, picks up the laundry, puts it back in her basket on top of her head, and continues towards me. A few steps later, the same thing happens. And again, the same response. Talk about taking the significance out of failure. The second thing I learned is that failure provides opportunities for growth and development. When everything is harmonious, there is no cause for growth. It's only in a defining moment that a person is called to reach deep within. It's only in the face of fear that courage can arise. And it's only in adversity that leadership is called to being. After my engagement ended, I dealt with post-traumatic stress and anxiety, and I began to study mental health. I'm grateful for my experience. My growth has made me a better friend and leader. I became empathetic and relatable because I too had walked the fire. Third, as I mentioned, failure provides that course correction. After those huge career setbacks that I mentioned earlier in my life, I took the opportunity to go backpacking internationally for months at a time. I began living a life that even I envied. I backpacked and trekked through luscious green jungles, rural villages. Sometimes I was the first American woman they had met. I made friends all over the world, picked up languages, and gained amazing perspective. I did all the beautiful, breathtaking things that mattered to me that I might not have done had my life gone according to plan. And lastly, failure provides the opportunity to bounce. Think of it this way. In order for a ball to come up once it's down, it has to hit bottom. The harder a ball hits bottom, the higher the bounce. That's just like failure. The bigger the fail, the harder the fall, and the bigger the opportunity to rise. Steve Jobs made an emphatic comeback from an almost irrecoverable failure. Jobs found success in his 20s when Apple became a massive empire. But when he was 30, Apple's board of directors fired him. Undaunted by the failure, Jobs started a new company called Next, which was eventually acquired by Apple. Once back at Apple, Jobs proved his capacity for greatness and bounced by reinventing the company's image and taking the Apple brand to new heights. Everyone fails. Successful people just react differently to failure. They're neither devastated nor paralyzed by it. They remove the significance. They grow. They view it as a course correction and then bounce. Failure works for them. My life comedically continues to provide numerous opportunities for growth and development. The bonzos keep rolling in. I'm happy to report, as a result from my course corrections, I've started my own web development company, backpacked 35 countries, founded a nonprofit, and wrote my first book. According to Scranton University records, 98% of people die without fulfilling their dreams. 98% of the population permit their fears, their concerns, and their considerations to justify quitting or not even going for their dreams. This, your life, it's not a dress rehearsal. The question is, are you willing to fail enough to have your dreams? Or will you be part of that statistic? I challenge you to review past bonzos. Look and see what course corrections have been cleverly disguised as failure. Embrace the offerings that failure brings. And in the future, if you should ever encounter a plot twist, ask yourself, how high will I bounce? Thank you.